Wazazi, muvute stool na viti karibu na TV na radio. We have a conversation we want to engage in. We began a conversation on the P's of parenting. And we talked about provision. Today we are talking about protection. As parents, we have a role to protect our children. But what does that mean and what does it involve? This morning we get to hang out with the Executive Director at Childline Kenya, Martha Sunda. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you, Pastor?
I'm fine. Karibu
Yes.
sana.
Asante.
It's good to have you.
Good to see you, yes.
Yes. Naona uko na kikombe ya Jam 316.
Hata ni Eden tea.
I hope uko na Eden tea. We are going back to Eden. We also have a transformational life coach, Angela Nzilani. How are you doing?
I'm good, I'm good.
Karibu sana. It's good to
Asante
have you.
sana. Thanks for having me.
I was thinking about this whole protection thing and I got overwhelmed as a parent in this generation. When we talk about protecting our children, what exactly do we mean?
I think we mean doing whatever we can to prevent harm from coming to our children. And this harm could be either emotional, physical, mental, sometimes even spiritual, sometimes even just the society and whatever it is that can happen to harm them, to make them not be the people they're supposed to be, to grow to the people they're supposed to grow. Because when you're a child, that's when, those are like, the younger years are like the formative years of a child. So whatever comes to those child, whatever gets into them, controls somehow their subconscious mind. When they grow up, they end up becoming who they become because of things that happened to them. So as parents, we have to be careful what we expose our children to or what we let the world expose our children to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would I be right in saying we are like the gatekeepers into the lives of our children?
Oh, yes, we are.
That's a huge responsibility.
It is a huge responsibility. Sometimes I am not sure we go into parenting or situations of responsibility, understanding the weight of it. And so we go in there unprepared and we compromise the quality of service that we give to our children or support that we give to our children or children that we are responsible for. Let me put it that way, because some of us might not be biological parents, but we have responsibility of our children. So if we don't understand how heavy that responsibility is and the long-term impact on the individual and the society at large, then we mess up a lot. And so we have a cycle of violence, we have a cycle of depression, and people who are not quite thriving as individuals.
So what does it entail, this protection?
I think it entails, first of all, being knowledgeable. Being knowledgeable about what you're supposed to do.
Okay.
You know, most of the parenting nowadays, it's oops thing, you know. But once it happens, you know, you have to accept and know that my life has just changed and I'm a different person altogether. So you have to be aware of what it is that you're protecting these children from. It's not just, you know, you have to be knowledgeable of what you want also for the children.
Okay.
Although you also have to be aware that they have to be individuals on themselves. They have to be on their own persons. They cannot be you. So you also protect them from yourself, not putting too much of yourself to them. Well, showing guidance, yes, but not trying to define their future according to your standards. Train them to be able to come up with their own standards.
Okay. You know, there's something that Angela said a couple of minutes ago. And I'm just thinking, you know, when this child is young, she talked about, you know, when this child is young, whatever experiences they go through, whatever they're exposed to, these are the things that, you know, determine how their life will go, the way they will think, who they will become.
Yes.
And I'm just thinking when these children are that young, they can't make decisions for themselves.
They can. Certain decisions.
Yeah, but they don't have the final say.
No. They don't.
Yes, they don't have the final say. As a parent, you decide what comes in, what goes out, where
Sure.
they can go, where they can go, who they can visit, who can come visit them.
Yes.
You decide all those things, what they can watch, what they can't watch.
Yes.
Do we as parents understand the importance of those years and what we allow and what we don't allow and how it affects these children?
We understand only up to the level that we have been exposed to or have experience in.
Okay.
So looking at how I was raised, that becomes my standard for dealing with a child. And same for my husband. So sometimes we even have conflict because we are coming from two different families,
Yes.
different value systems
Yes.
perhaps, and now we are raising children together. So decisions of even what to watch, I might be uncomfortable with certain content. He might be okay with it. So there's already conflict there.
Yes.
And the children can tell, so they know which cards to play,
Yeah.
when, and with who. So I think, like Angeline said, we need to accept and have knowledge about where we are at, so that we collectively, now I'm thinking of a couple, we collectively make decisions on how to deal as a unit
Yes.
with these children,
Yes.
so that we don't mess them up in terms of conflicting information and standards, because they are also, as individuals, the way she said, are building their own standard or set of standards to use or value system. So if we mess them up here, then they're growing with conflict all the time.
Yeah.
Should I do this because mom is around? Should I do this because dad is around?
Yes.
So when I'm on my own, whose standard am I following? And that brings a bit of issue when it's
Okay.
not clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk about our point of reference being how we were raised up.
Yes.
It's only natural that you will try and raise up your children the way you were raised up and what you're exposed to. But I find that we live in a generation where things change by the minute.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes a lot of us parents are out of touch with the reality
Many
on the
times.
ground. I was talking to a good friend of mine, Professor Ndete, and he was telling me how he was conducting a research amongst young people. And so he was sending out young people to collect data. And there's some questions on the questionnaire that for him he thought, why are we, these are people in high school. Why are we asking them if they're sexually active? Surely they're not sexually active. Why are we asking them, you know, on questions to do with homosexuality and things like that? And the young people who were conducting the research for him told him, leave those questions there. And he said the feedback shocked him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as parents, we go through that also, or we get shocked when the reality hits us
Yes.
after we begin seeing some of these consequences. So how do you deal with that? Because if you don't know what to protect your children from, how do you prepare?
Protect them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I said earlier that knowledge is very important. You have to be aware of, you know, what it is that they could go through, they could be exposed to, and prepare the children also, talk to them. For me, I think I'm a parent to a teen, and I'm very careful about having conversations with him. And even the little one, I'm also very careful about having conversations with him.
Yeah.
So as parents, part of some of the protection that we need to do is to educate. We need to learn to educate our children according to their age. As much as we are saying that we bring up our children according to the standards that we grew up with, some of the standards may not even, because knowledge now comes to clarify all these things, may not be some of the standards may not be the right standards. So it's up to you as the parent to be deliberate. That's why I said, once you become a parent, your life ends. It's like, okay, it doesn't really end, but
the focus
your
on
life
you
as
shifts.
you know it.
Yeah, you can no longer shift, now focus on yourself. Now all your attention is on...
You're now responsible for somebody else and some other people, actually, if you're a parent to many. So you're responsible to other people who are totally different from each other, who are totally different from you. So you have to be knowledgeable about, you know, what are the things that you're supposed to say, what are the things that you're supposed to teach them according to their age. we say that you talked about the survey about, and there was sexuality involved and all that. Sometimes we ignore even teaching our children when they are young, thinking that they don't understand, you know.
Yes.
And these are things that if you talk to your children, even at that young age, you're protecting them. There was a case of, I think, a lady who sent an audio of a 6-year-old who was being molested by the colleagues, the friends.
Oh.
A small kid, 6-year-old, sodomized by peers, up to about children of about 10 to 13 years. It was a very sad story, and it was something that had gone on for many, many years, for a long time, to the extent of maybe times that the kid could not even count. Even the ones who were doing it to him could not count the number of times that they were doing it. And it was a group, an estate, a group of kids who are doing all this. So sometimes we may think that they are so young, you know, they're innocent, they are young, but we have to learn to talk to these babies when they are young, at the age that they can understand. Even a 1-year-old should know, touching my private parts, you know, all these kind of things. I should know that there are repercussions, there are consequences to anything that I'm doing that is not right. So we have to learn to teach our children age appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do we draw the line between protection and overprotection? Because sometimes when I say that, I'm reminded of an ad by one of these antiseptics, you know, where you have the overly protective mom and then this other mom who is a bit... Because sometimes I feel like, especially with this generation, in our generation, if you came back home from school and you had a bad report from the teacher and the teacher had spanked you, your parent would take you back to school. And your parent would spank you again in front of the teacher. Yes. There was no way you're going to misbehave towards the teacher. But nowadays, I find that has shifted. We take our children and go to school and scold the teacher in front of our children.
Yes.
You know, because we think we are protecting them. So is that protecting them or damaging them? Where do we draw the line? Protection, overprotection,
underprotection. There are several gray areas.
Okay.
I would say. So it's not a clear line of now I'm overprotective or not. And you keep shifting between the two. Sometimes, okay, you cannot always be protective.
Yeah.
Sometimes you will fall and overprotect or underprotect. So you first need to be aware when you have shifted so that you're able to quickly correct, because you're human. So we are not expecting perfection.
Very true.
Because if we do expect perfection, we are lying. We are also not perfect human beings. And so, like Angeline has said, the place of knowledge is important so that you know when you have shifted. Even the issue of child labor versus skill training in the home.
Yes, and teaching responsibility.
It's a very thin line there. So sometimes you find you have overdone it. Sometimes you have overcompensated, you know, for the work that was done. So it's just a balance we need to keep maintaining on a daily basis, almost. Or they're allowed to be on phone a certain period. But then you're also not regulating what they're checking. So it's like a delicate balance. But you just you need to keep informed and stay in touch with your child. You will notice their behavior sometimes changes depending on how you have dealt with an issue. Then you know already you have flipped on a side, an extreme side.
Okay.
And like she said, children have different personalities. So they're all different and they're also different from you. So the issues of personality, how you deal with one would be different, completely different than how you deal with the other. So you will complement this one and they would be satisfied. The other one would actually require a gift for them to get anywhere near satisfaction. And so you cannot use the same standard for all of them. You will not have met their needs. So it's an individual, daily, almost hourly decision you make with them to make sure you're not flipping on either side.
You know, I'm thinking back in the day, because we lived in communities, culture was a bit stronger than today. I think that provided protection for quite a number of things and areas where raising up of children was concerned, because the child was not considered you as the child belonged to the community. You know, my neighbor would spank me. Nowadays, if my neighbor spanks my child,
you, that's it.
Supreme Court. There's some opaque behavior from these quarters. We need to deal with it. And so how do we do that? Because we're trying to raise our children and we are all alone. And I'm thinking about that also from the perspective of mothers who are raising their children alone, because we have a lot of young women raising children alone. I know we have fathers also raising children alone, but the majority are actually mothers. So how do you deal with that?
I think parenting, just like as deliberate as it is, we have to have communities.
Okay.
Like now, that case I was talking about, if the parents were talking, were, you know, careful about what happens to these children in my house, because eventually they discovered that the older children, who are about 10 to 13, they belonged to some certain families, and the families were in denial. They were like, no, my kid cannot do this.
Yeah.
But the kids confessed.
Yeah.
They talked about it. So I think it's up to everybody to be deliberate, to get to know, you know, the people around you. Who are the people around you, and what is their parenting styles, and what, you know, just get to talk. We are social beings, and we will always connect with others. The same way our children will connect to others. So we have to learn to expose them to the realities of being social, because they will grow up, and we are maybe protecting them and locking them up and keeping them to ourselves. But it's inevitable. They will go to school and connect to other children. They will grow up and get to work, and you know. So when we are locking them just within those few hours when we are with them, it's not helping them. We are not protecting. So it's up to us parents to be deliberate and just to get to know your surrounding, get to know the people around you, and also make them know that I'm accountable. I'm also accountable to another person's child.
Okay. It is Parenting Tuesday. We are looking at the four P's of parenting. There's also a fifth one. And today we are talking about protection. We're hanging out with the Executive Director, Childline Kenya, Martha Sunda, and Transformational Life Coach, Angela Nzelani. Your questions coming through on 20316 for SMS and WhatsApp 0786316316. Let's talk about technology, because I think that's the issue that a lot of parents are facing today. Some of them don't even recognize it's an issue until much later. I was having a conversation on, I was having a class on Saturday, a baby dedication class, because we were doing baby dedication this Sunday. So I was meeting with the parents, and I was telling parents, some of us use the phone to soothe our children.
Yes.
But we have no idea what they're doing with our phones. As long as they're quiet somewhere in a corner, we have peace. We can put our feet up
and work on a few things.
Yes. So how do we deal with this? Because it's both good and bad.
It is both good and bad. And the COVID situation that we found ourselves in actually presented to us the true situation, because now everything had to go online anyway. And so we were exposed to certain things we were shocked about as adults. I'm sure children, it was even worse for children. In 2018, we started implementing a project on child online safety with a certain organization called Terre des Hommes, Netherlands. So in 2018, we had dialogue sessions with parents and some sessions with children as well. So when we had a chat with the parents, they were thinking, are you crazy? But there's no issue. Even if there are issues, it's a select few, you know, so they were not convinced it was a big deal. The children, on the other hand, were open. They said, well, we do a few things.
What age groups?
12, 13. 12, 13.
Okay.
Some of them 14, thereabout. So we started sensitizing them on the issues of online safety, especially child online sexual exploitation. So in 2018, we only handled 13 cases. So the parents were saying, see, you're exaggerating this thing.
Yes.
In 2019,
a year later.
185, I think, cases. What? Now it became a crisis. Now they were calling us. We were not begging them to come for sessions. They were calling us to go to their estates to talk to those children. We have a crisis there. Because now when they went to have a chat with their children to just check, some of them were snooping, which is not a very good thing, but they, just to test whether what we are saying is true.
Yes.
They found the situation was wanting. Some of them through their own phones. You know the way you send yourself, you send stuff, or you are in a group and someone posts something.
Yes.
Then when your child is playing with your phone,
they access.
Yeah. So it is there's no malice, but they have been exposed.
Yes.
And from there, and our children are very clever, they'll go start Googling now for more. And they get it because it is there, free. So that was not the whole country. It was only 3 counties: Kisumu, Nairobi, and Mombasa.
Wow. And
even then, not whole counties, pockets. Imagine, and those are the numbers you're registering every year since 2019 now. So the problem is real big. And we have stories of children who are attending online classes, and then someone just barges in and posts pornographic material. So you stop class, you start therapy.
Yeah. And
for some of those children, it's a whole damage that will take much longer to correct because of curiosity also and things like that. So it's a monster. Yet we also know we can't do without internet anymore. Our lives are intertwined in there, and it's really beneficial when you know what you're looking for and with guidance. So we can't protect our children from it. They will access it either from a neighbor or a cyber. I mean, it is accessible. They can even buy phones. Phones are very cheap now. So what we need to do is build their value system.
I like that.
Yeah, so that when they find themselves in that space, they know what decisions they need to make. And they don't have to keep second guessing themselves, or that you have to be there for them to meaningfully interact online. And so we start early, because like you said, some parents, many parents, charged, give phones to our children to soothe them or to allow us some space. But while you're doing that, you need to be conscious that you could be exposing them to some harm. And because it is beautiful and entertaining, the perpetrators are also using the same platform to reach out, not just to children, but to us as adults
as well.
So if we can be affected as adults, how much more the children? So we need to be alive to that fact so that we train our children early. If someone asks you for this information, check with me if you're not sure. But otherwise, the answer is no. Before you befriend anyone, let's talk about it. So it's just safe pointers and tips for them to survive on the online space without them also feeling, surely mzigo yote nimepewa, and then they start hiding things from you, So it has to be a very safe, friendly interaction with them on an ongoing basis, not waiting for an incident, then reacting to it, because even the learning at that point is already compromised. So they will approach from a defensive point instead of just a learning everyday thing for themselves.
I like something she has said, and I think it's very important, and maybe sometimes as parents we miss it. She talked about teaching them a value system. Because I think sometimes as parents we are so focused on putting up boundaries, but we don't teach our children the necessity and the importance of the boundaries. Because I've found that sometimes you may begin by putting the boundaries, but if you do the teaching well, you can even remove the boundaries. And the teaching becomes the boundary that keeps them. I don't know what you can say about the whole aspect of being present to teach. Yes. Is that a form of protection?
It is, because there's a lot of things they, of course, like nowadays they're being exposed to. So we have to teach them, those values. The Bible says that teach your child in the ways of the Lord, so that
When they are older, they will not depart.
Yes, yes. And if they depart, they will come back to
back.
it. Yeah, they will always come back
Yeah.
to it. So it's a safe place for them.
Okay.
When you're teaching them values, when you're teaching them the way they are supposed to live. And it's not just for now, it's like preparing them for adulthood. But that is also part of the protection. You're preparing them for a future.
Yes.
They need to know why. Why am I doing this? If you don't have a why, you never get to move. You never get, you just live by, you're just living day by day. You know, whatever you're controlled by whatever the environment puts you, exposes you to. So you need to have a very strong why, that you need to teach them that strong why, and always to have a reason why am I telling you this, you know? I remember at some point, I'm a single mother, and I have a son who is a teen, and when he was approaching teenage, I got him a mentor. And I remember the mentor would talk to him about marriage. And I'm like, oh, it's too early. And then I had to take the time to really learn why. Why is he? Because if he's being taught about marriage now when he's a teen, then of course he's going to know that I'm growing towards there. So everything I do now, it matters a lot into the kind of husband I'll become, the kind of provider I will become. Even the way I relate with my mother will determine how I will relate to my wife in the future. So what we are preparing them now for is for the future. We need to have a vision for them, even if it's of course they will have their own vision. But as parents, we are custodians from God. We've been selected. There's a reason why your children are selected. You were selected for your children, and not me and not the other person. So as custodians, then what are we preparing these children for? Where are we taking them? Because eventually the end goal is the same. So we have to really train them with those values that will help them to become the kind of the dream that we have for them. And even if we have our own dream for them, and they will have their own dream for themselves, you'll realize that there's no much gap. It's kind of in a line. There will be uniformity with what we are thinking about them and for them, and what they're thinking about themselves for themselves.
Let me weigh in on that a bit. Over time, we have taught our children in our home for them to ask why. So we don't just say, because mom said so. They have to ask why. And you see, that pushes you to get a little more information, so that please don't go to person X's home. Why? Because our value systems and theirs are not the same. What do you mean? Then you explain. So that it's an engagement with understanding. More than a blank, mom said so. So they would come back to you and say, hey, we went and this is what happened, and mom, so you said this is wrong because of ABCD. Then you know they have understood. And they're able to pass that message even to their peers without you intervening in any way.
I was going to ask about Christian parents.
Sometimes
I find Christian parents struggle because we are living in a sinful world.
Oh yes, it is very sinful.
And we want to protect our children thoroughly. So I've seen Christian parents who build such a shield around their children can't even make any kind of decisions. Because we are Christians, because we are believers, you will not grow here. I won't even take you to a kawaida school. You will do homeschool. Nothing wrong with homeschool. I think homeschool is great. But I think perspective also sometimes is very important. And you find, I've seen cases where that happens, and by the time this young man becomes a teenager or a young adult, when they can make their own decisions, they go the exact
opposite and extreme.
And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So what do we do in a situation like this as a Christian parent? You know, what are extremes? What would be wise?
I start from the place of understanding what Christianity is. I think many people have thought of Christianity in a bubble. But Christianity is a certain lifestyle within the same society. So I do not understand when we are saying, I am a Christian, therefore I will not participate in politics, for example. Politics is a critical part of our lives, everyday life. and decisions are made that affect you as a Christian.
Yes.
So you can't separate secular world from Christianity. You exist within it.
Yes.
I think that is a place to start.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, you cannot hide under the table.
Mm-hmm.
No, you have to play your Christianity here
Mm-hmm.
on the table where everything is happening,
Yeah.
and show where the difference is, that
Okay.
you are following certain standards.
Yeah.
Even as you negotiate a job, for example,
Mm-hmm.
even as you engage in business, even as you go for a football match,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And those are the things we need to teach our children.
Mm-hmm.
That because you're Christian, it doesn't mean the world will change for you.
You know.
No. You will exist within it, but differently.
Differently.
Yeah, but so what is this difference? That is what you teach them, so that they are able to stand within it and
I like
survive.
that.
Yeah.
Maybe to add on what she said, I think we protect our children from things that they must go through.
Yes.
They
True.
must be exposed to.
Mm.
You know, they must be exposed to traffic jam. They must be exposed
Isn't it?
You know, they must be exposed to a naughty friend who will sometimes bully them.
Yes.
You know, they must go through all these things because we cannot do it for them.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
have to go through this exposure. It's for now us to teach them. Now the values will help.
True.
The things we teach them will help.
Yes.
But we cannot protect them from everything. We cannot protect them from the consequences
No, you
of their mistakes. We cannot protect them from even making mistakes.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are supposed to make
Yeah.
those mistakes so that they learn from them.
Yes.
And then it's up to us now to teach them that mistakes are
Happen.
They are part
they
of life.
happen. Yes,
Yeah,
I
but
will
learn
punish
from
you,
them,
but
yeah.
you must learn also.
Yes.
You'll come back and tell me what you learned from the mistake, even after I've punished you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
True.
Ladies, imagine at the time imeisha.
Oh.
Oh,
That was too quick.
Imagine looking at my
1
clock
hour
and
is
thinking
short.
like,
Yeah.
time has gone. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. We need to keep having these conversations because parenting in this generation is not a walk in the park.
No, it is not.
Yeah,
It's not.
it's hard work, and we need to come together and help one another.
Yes.
Wazazi, I'm locking maybe I should be calling this the parental clinic, since I have got the relationship clinic on Thursday, I have got the financial clinic tomorrow. Maybe even this one, we should change it to just be parenting clinic.
Yeah.
I'll talk to my producer and we'll see. What do you think about that name, by the way? If you like that name, tell me. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next week for another conversation on parenting. God bless you.
Thank you for watching. Remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get notified whenever we upload new fresh content every day. Stay tuned and enjoy fresh, uplifting content.